Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Julie Mann. I am a professional network marketer, an actor, and I'm also an EFT practitioner. And today I'm joined by Steve Finch, who is a travel professional. That was hard to say. Hi, Steve.
Good morning. How are you?
We're good. How are you?
As well as can be. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
Good. So I know that you've had more than 29 years of experience in travel, so a long time. But I'm curious to know, when you were a young boy, were you lucky enough to be taken away abroad on holiday? Because I certainly wasn't.
Well, the funny thing is, well, due to my sort of family situation, I ended up going to Berlin every summer between the ages of about 4 and 16 years old, because that's where my stepmother came from. So I spent 3 weeks every summer there. So I saw it when the wall was in place. And of course, that was highly intriguing and rather scary as well to actually check that out. And I have a real fondness for Berlin as a consequence of that. But other than Berlin, I think the only place I went to until I actually joined the airlines was probably Calais. So yeah, funny enough, it has certainly opened and helped me spread my wings to travel around the world, working for the airlines. I started in 1980 actually at Laker Airways.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in a minute, but I'd really love to know, to begin with, what your earliest memory is, Steve, of that desire to see the world.
I think it was just the fascination of being on an aeroplane for a start, looking out the windows of an aircraft at the clouds beneath you. Once you'd actually done that, that was really it. I think I think the first flight I took was on a Vickers Viscount, which was a four-engine turboprop, and it was on British European Airways. It was just that whole excitement, and actually that excitement of travelling still is there. I know it's been sort of de-glamorized somewhat, but I think that's what it is. And as I say, I was quite a late starter, I feel, but then again, of a generation, our youngsters today do so much traveling and they maybe take it a bit for granted, as maybe I do in a way, having had the opportunity to do it in the interim period. But yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's definitely getting on the aircraft was the thing that was so exciting for me. And, you know, when I did my first trip as an unaccompanied minor, I think I was about 13, something like that, which basically means you travel without your mum and dad to a place. That was also very exciting because, of course, that was just a real adventure. And I have to say one other thing as well. When I was 16, I did actually go into East Berlin on my own from West Berlin, which at the part was at the time part of the German Democratic Republic. And of course, there are a lot of obstacles there. And again, that was very exciting to do because, of course, it was unknown territory, if you like. So, yes, that helped too.
And doing that at 16 as well. That must have been
Yeah. I did go with my mum once, and then I decided to do it on my own. One other journey that I did there, and I thought it was really interesting. Strange experience. You go to Alexanderplatz at the time. You could go and sit in a restaurant and order a glass of lemonade, for example. But that lemonade, because of the way it was with the DDR, was basically a glass of water with a slice of lemon in it. And most of the things on the menu didn't exist at all. They were just there as a showcase to show the East to the West in the best possible way. But in reality, of course, it wasn't quite there really.
Wow. So apart from Germany and going to Calais, what was the first ever trip abroad that you had?
The first one would have been after I joined Laker Airways. After I got my concessions, which you did after working with an airline for a year or so, it was New York City. And then I did 9 other trips that year as well, to the America and Canada, actually, just to make the most of my concessions. And again, that was just exciting. It was just a very short trip, usually 1 night or 2 nights. And you just get on an aircraft for £5 return. And Laker Airways, it was just brilliant. I actually found it cost about a third of that to go from my local railway station to Gatwick Airport, and that railway station was only about 4 miles away. So the flight to Los Angeles, for example, I did that as well, was only £5 return, subject to availability and space on the flight. But that's just brilliant.
That's
Brilliant.
just amazing, isn't it? So
Yeah.
£5 return. What year are we talking about here, Steve?
We're talking about 1981. So it was a while back. It's in the era of SkyTrain that Laker Airways had, which was helping people travel across the Atlantic really cheaply. There were people queuing up at Gatwick Airport to travel. It was like a bus service. I think it was £49 one way to go to New York or to Los Angeles, and they did Tampa, Miami, They did Toronto as well. And it just opened the doors for a lot of people to travel. It was the modern day Ryanair, EasyJet, really, in a lot of ways. Low cost operation. You could buy a voucher for your meals on board the flight. They operated DC-10s. And because I worked in the crewing department at Laker Airways, I had the ability to sort of sometimes manipulate, if you like, and in the nicest possible way, cabin crew could share together, and I'd get the opportunity to avail of their therefore spare room in the crew hotel. And I went with other crewing chaps as well, and we all did it. And it was at no cost to the airline, and it certainly was at a very, very low cost for a lowly paid crewing assistant. So
exciting times. So I remember Laker Airlines, but how did your career in travel actually begin? Tell us your story, Steve.
Well, I think the funny thing is when I left school in '76, I joined NatWest Bank. I did that for a while. I think what you would call a plastic punk in a way. I loved my music, and you had to wear a pinstripe suit. That didn't really suit me. It's very class structured. You had this weird situation that the managers didn't really want to talk to junior male staff. It was that class structured unless you're of a real senior ranking, which I never was. So my face didn't really fit. However, it was a great start into a job, no question. It was a job for life, actually, technically. And one of my friends, he had A levels. I left with those. I had to leave early for various reasons with the family, leave school, that is. And I just found the situation. He got into down air, and I thought, well, if he can do it, even though he's got the A levels, I'm sure I could. I think the airlines are what I need to do. So I just wrote letters, as you did by hand. I wrote to about 30 odd airlines, various of them, and eventually I got a reply back from Laker Airways, and I went for an interview with Laker, and that was in early 1980. And the funny thing is, when I actually went for the interview in Crawley, the person actually let me in and opened the door at the bottom of the stairwell was Freddie Laker himself, Sir Freddie. And I thought, wow, because he was really high profile at the time in the UK press and around the world. So he let me into the building, and I had my interview as a crewing assistant and got it. And that's what set me on my way. And really, I suppose until that moment, the door opened, in two ways, for me to actually get into travel. But until that time, I'd been interested in maybe working as a vet, but I didn't have the qualifications for that. And travel was the other thing, or an air traffic controller, which again, the same thing applied. I left school early because of what was going on with my family, as I say, so I couldn't go on and do A levels. Whether it would have helped me or not, I don't really know. But I don't have any regrets at all about setting off on this path, because travel isn't the best paid job in the world. There's no question of that. However, it does open your eyes to opportunities. Seeing the world is so important. It gives you the experiences to appreciate. You just think, I sometimes think, so what is going on in Delhi at the moment? I know I've been to Delhi, so I'm just thinking of the absolute chaos on the streets there at the moment, the smells, the sights, the sounds. And I think it's just opening that. It experiences everything, and knowledge is everything. And it makes you more considerate of what's around you, I think, as well. I'm quite keen now on the sort of looking out for, the environment, really. Bit of a paradox, maybe, because, of course, just say aviation does pollute a bit. They are working on that, mind you. I can go to that later if required. But I passed a travel foundation thing. This is all about just basically trying to give to the local economy that you fly to, for example. So I've gone off tangent here, and maybe a little bit, Julie, but I think it's a very important thing to do. Respect the people you're seeing, and try and avoid all inclusive, if you like. Just go and meet people, go and integrate with the locals. It's all part of the holiday experience. They want to know about you, you want to know about them. And likewise, when they come over here, try and be receptive to them as well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I will never forget the smell of India.
Yeah.
You have to think about it, and there it is. So I'd love to ask you a little bit about Freddie Laker, because I used to watch him on television, and he was quite a charismatic person. Well, that's how he came across on television. So what was he like? Was he inspiring?
He was inspiring. That's the thing. When I left my bank job, I took a pay cut to join Laker Airways. So that, like all airlines, I didn't pay a great deal. But Sir Freddie was very interesting. Because at the time he was travelling a lot himself, of course. And I used to work in crewing, so I used to do night shifts. And quite often you were coming off a late flight or whatever, and pop into our department and show some of the toys that he'd bought in, say, New York, for example. because at the time you didn't have the internet, so you didn't have the gadgetry that you've now got. And so he'd show us these various bits and bobs that he'd got there because he could. And yeah, he was still a child at heart in a lot of ways, but he sort of he expected loyalty in a way. But there again, there wasn't any problem in offering it because he was so interesting. He was such an enthusiast and obviously a very, very clever man. Unfortunately, in the end, he sort of got turned over a bit by other airlines, really, and governments with regards to how they competed against him because he was providing something at such a low price. I didn't know enough of him. I started in 1980. Laker Airways sadly folded in 1982. So I was only really there for a year with my concessions. However, it set me on the way for other jobs. But no, he was really interesting. He's a bit of a roister-doister, really. He's a, I think he had a few marriages and things like that. But as I say, he was inspirational, I think you said, and I tend to agree with that, really. And yeah, he did very well, and say he was very personable too, and just enthusiastic, hungry for life, really, I think.
Yes, that's what I imagined. So it's obvious, Steve, that you absolutely love what you do. But, with anything, there are always challenges, aren't there? So what are some of the challenges that you've had to face working in the travel industry? And what did you do to get through those challenges?
Well, I mean, I've been in the travel industry a fair bit. I've worked for the airlines, so I've worked in crewing and operations, and I've also been the partner in a tour operator. So you had about 40 staff, and you had a lot of clients, and they I think the tour operators where the challenges really applied because you have a lot on the line. Your house is up as surety against the CAA for ATOL licenses, things like that. So if your company goes, you might lose the roof over your head. That is a pressure. I remember in 2008 when we had the crash, we were selling holidays at a loss because the exchange rate crashed by 25% overnight. So most tour operators' profit margins are not that excessive. So you can see where I'm coming from. You buy the currency and then you find that you've got to pay all these bills, and actually it's negative for every successful holiday you achieve. So that was a lot of pressure. We were working really long days, from 6 or 7 in the morning till 10 or 11 at night for quite a lot of nights, just trying to keep it all afloat. But we managed, and that was the good thing about that. So that was a massive pressure. But there are so many challenges. There are a lot of challenges being thrown up of late, of course. But the challenges really are making sure you get what you expect. As a traveller, there are just so many pitfalls now to be encompassed regarding travel. There always have been. Do you need a visa? Do you need this? Do you need that? Are you allowed to go into that country? At the moment, there are a skip full of restrictions being put into place. And the main challenge for a traveller is to make sure they have their money protected. Obviously, when you save up all your hard-earned money over the year, you want to make sure you put that money in a safe place for your holiday and that you take your holiday. And if you don't manage your holiday, you want to make sure that it's looked after and that you're being cared for. So what I do is I will speak to my clients throughout the process and make sure they're okay with everything from the start to the beginning, and even during, if necessary, their trip, just to make sure it all is going as it should do. But yeah, main challenge I'd say is things like you have the ash cloud situation that occurred over Iceland. That was quite interesting. I was working when the tsunami occurred. We had clients missing in Sri Lanka. I actually went into the office. That was over Christmas many years back. And that's obviously quite scary as well, trying to find people when you may have lost them. That's when I was with my other tour operator, and that was quite challenging. But fortunately for us, we didn't lose anyone. But of course, a lot of people did lose their lives as a consequence of the tsunamis. And yeah, there's always something in travel. That's the thing. No day is ever the same. That's the thing, isn't it? There's always something going. There's always political issues that raise their heads that cause, places, cities, countries to close down, open up. Restrictions are suddenly imposed that you don't know about. I try and keep my finger on that for my clients and for myself, because it's important to know what's going on. At the current time, it's very, very hard to keep your finger on the pulse because the hand keeps moving. That's got a pulse there within. In fact, the whole body does, I think, really. But yeah, it's interesting. So as I say, no day is ever the same.
And that's great, isn't it, that you get that variety, and it sounds extraordinarily interesting and fascinating what you do. And how do you manage to stay buoyant with the changes?
Yeah, well, buoyancy is a bit awkward. I mean, I'm now self-employed. I work from home as a travel counsellor. I'm part of a franchise basically. When I ran a tour operator, I was really exposed. I'm sort of a little bit exposed now, but the main thing is now that I do not earn unless I sell holidays. So that is one of the challenges, of course, because you are competing with the internet. The internet is basically very anonymous. Basically, it's a transactional environment. You basically do your own work. You pay a small amount, possibly at times, and you get what you get. And when you're booking with someone like myself, you've got a bit of human interaction. I can always someone you can speak to, and I'm looking after you. So there's actually an interest in making sure that your holiday goes the way. Yes, I will ring up to make sure you've got the right paperwork. I'll check the day before you go that you're going. So the challenge is competing against that sort of scenario, because quite often people are just focused on the financial side of things rather than the service side of things. I'm providing a service, looking out for you. There are so many things to look out for with a trip. Some of them are very simple. I've got quite a few elderly clients because I'm an agent for various other tour operators too, and they just love the fact they can talk to somebody. You know, I'm around ostensibly 7 days a week. You know, I do actually have days off occasionally as well, like going for walking and things like that. But the challenge is to survive, because, you know, as I say, if I don't sell a holiday, I don't earn. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to sell you a pup. Basically, I believe in what I sell, because, you know, I want to think, well, if I'm going to that destination, what would I do? You know, I'm not going to say you have to do that, but I'm going to say, I would say, do this, you know, with that. And it's a matter of believing in what you're selling. And travel counsellors are financially protected. So that's one of the best things of all. I know that the money's ring fenced and protected. We are bonded. There's only 2 operators in the whole of the UK that bond the money that's paid into them in the way that we do, as far as I'm aware. And that's so important. So I trust what I sell on that basis too, as well as trusting myself to provide the right answers for people. But the main challenge is, as I say, earning. But, you know, travel counsellors, a lot of us are more senior, if you like to call it that way. Our mortgages may have been paid off to a degree. So we don't have that financial pressure on us, which the high street travel agents, albeit they're very limited now, put onto their staff. You know, they sort of say, you've got to sell that many holidays by the end of this week. Otherwise, you're not achieving your targets. I don't have that situation, and I don't wish to impart that situation. I want to make the bookings, of course I do. I do a lot of work for bookings. Some don't come off. A lot of them do come off. But I'm not going to sell because I'm told to sell. I'm going to sell because it's in your interests. But if it's in my interest too, that's great, of course.
Yeah, well, it's so important to have that integrity, isn't it? And really be looking to serve someone in the best possible way. And, you know, personally, having, you know, booked holidays with an independent travel advisor, actually, I love having that reassurance, and I like being able to talk to people. You know, I'm not interested in engaging with
Sure.
Yeah. So if you had to recommend your best holiday, I know this might be a little bit tricky for you because you've been to so many places, what would be the destination and what would you be doing there? You've got to pick one. You can only pick one, Steve.
Oh, come on. I've been to 70 odd countries. There's quite a few to know that. My favourite, and I've said this before to people, I've been now to Sri Lanka 3 times. And I've been over the period of about a 20-year window, if you like. Funny enough, I've not taken my family there as yet. I want to go there again with them. But Sri Lanka is just very interesting. It's currently the west side of the island is open up. There is a monsoon influence there. So you have a time of the year that you have to go really, which is probably November through to April on the west coast. But the east coast is now opening up. But the interesting thing about Sri Lanka is there's a beach destination. I'm not so mad about beaches, funny enough, but it's also culturally fascinating. You go inland, you've got places like Polonnaruwa, Anuradhapura, Sigiriya, where the Lion Rock is, and then go further down to the south, to Bentota, Barawela, which are on the coast. And then you've got this place called Nuwaya Elio, which is in the hill country where the tea plantations are. And that is one of the most bizarre places. You've got cottages there, like English cottages. You can walk up a garden path, like an English country garden, and it is just like that, except the temperature's a bit different, because it's very colonial. The people are lovely. And of course, you do have this weird situation where you're going along a road, rickety old bus or car or whatever, and you're overtaking a cyclist that's overtaking a cow on a road that's unmarked, dark with no lights, and you've got cars coming the other way. This is a single track doing exactly the same. And you've got people selling pineapples by the side of the streets. And again, you've got the sights and the sounds. And it's just things like that. It's fascinating. And you've got these monitor lizards creeping around and other things. And the funny thing that actually swung me for Sri Lanka, what actually dragged me into thinking I want to go there, is when I saw a video by Duran Duran. I think it was Save a Prayer, where you see the fishermen sitting on sticks in the sea. And I thought, wow, that looks really interesting. Yeah, and I looked at it, I thought, and then they just informed me on Sigir as well. So I wasn't wearing a white suit like Simon Le Bon might have done, but I could have got one maybe. Maybe I could have got a tailor there. I don't know, in Colombo, but yeah, really, that's what dragged me into Sri Lanka. And then, I visited a couple of schools there and things like that. They love their biros, and of course, you end up taking the t-shirt off your back effectively. But yeah, Sri Lanka is the number one long haul destination, but I won't dwell on the other ones. But no, it's a fantastic place, and it's not too far from us really, in the scheme of things. It's about a 10-hour flight, something like that, I suppose, 11 hours, yeah.
Wow, I absolutely love that picture that you've painted. It's just so vivid. I was totally there, and I'd absolutely love to be there for real. So why would you say, Steve, that you do what you do?
Well, the funny thing is, in light of the recent things that have been going on, I thought, well, I don't want to change my direction. And when I left my previous tour operator, sold it, I thought, well, I still want to be in travel. I can't, I've been in travel, well, it's actually now 40 years, in fact, and I've been in it for so long. And at my age, I don't feel I need to go anywhere else other than travel. It's an expertise I have. It's a thing I'm interested in. My hobbies are traveling, as well as playing badminton and golf and walking and going to concerts and football matches. But it's just so important to go traveling, and it's an eye opener. So really, I think I can't imagine a life without travel, even though currently it's a little bit iffy, I suppose. The thing I mentioned, the climate thing before as well. It's so nice to know that the likes of EasyJet in 10 years' time or so are looking at having electric aircraft operating on the shorter flights. So, I assume there'll still be some room for baggage if they've got big batteries on them. But, it's still an emotive thing to do. And I think really it's an eye opener. I mentioned about, Delhi earlier on, about thinking what's going on there at this very moment in time, for example. It's knowing that, and by traveling, you're opening your eyes and opening your knowledge, that you're not just being insular and looking inside one country. For example, if you're an American at the moment, it's 3,000 miles wide, that country, or so, in several time zones. I can understand why Americans don't have the urge or impetus really to go overseas unless they've tried it themselves. And when they have tried it, I think, well, actually, yeah, it's not just America, because America's got every climate under the sun there within, really, hasn't it? So, whereas little old England doesn't, and of course the Australians have to travel for the same reason. I think they're hungry to see the world from their own shores. So, I think it's great for children as well, youngsters. Yeah, it's a real eye opener too. It's a huge education, and I think it's the best education of all if a parent or parents can take their offspring away on holiday. And if it can be something cultural, like a city break, as well as a beach, then that's good as well. Because again, the children remember this, and it sets them on their way, I think. And I think it's so important for them to get the chance to do it. And we're lucky that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So how might someone get in touch with you, Steve?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I basically am based in Crawley, near Gatwick Airport. My telephone number, if you want it, is 01293 737 580. But I guess the information will be available at the bottom of the screen or whatever maybe. And I work from home, so I'm able to speak to people at a time that suits them, rather than just during office hours if that's inconvenient to them. I can speak to them at 6 or 7 in the evening, or on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I also, as I say, have a Twitter account, and I've got a Facebook business page, and I do have a website as well. So it's travelcounsellors.com, steve.finch. But again, that's all there. Quite easy to find me on Google as well, actually. I'm quite lucky. If you just put in Steve Finch Travel into Google, you will find me.
Fabulous. So when you're no longer on this planet, Steve, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, that's a tricky one. I don't have a gun, so I'm not going to go around on a rampage. It's a tricky one. I think I want to be remembered more by my daughter than anything else. But I think I will be remembered as being a fairly easygoing, relaxed sort of chap, friendly, helpful. I'd like to think. I'm not antagonistic. I am quite political at times, and I am someone that loves my music. I really miss going to concerts at the moment, but that's not. It's strange, isn't it? Because unless you're really in the forefront of things, how you're remembered is a very strange thing, isn't it? Once I've stopped doing this, I want to do a few voluntary things. But again, if they can be sort of travel related, which maybe isn't so easy, that would be the case. But I think it's good to, when you've got, keep yourself occupied. So when I've stopped doing travel, I'm not sure when that would be, to be honest, because I'm 62 now, and I can carry on a bit longer. I've got nothing to stop me from doing this unless I decide I've had enough of it, really. And eventually I will decide to take a break from it, I suppose, but it's not in the foreseeable future, because there's a big planet I still want to see as well. I do cruises too, and I've been on one cruise so far. I've sold many. My wife doesn't feel the inclination to do cruises, but I'm quite interested in doing some more, possibly, but that might not happen just yet, I suppose. But
Steve, about when you're not on this planet at all, when life is over.
When I'm not on this planet at all?
Yes. How do you want people to remember you?
It's such a tricky question, really, isn't it? It really is a really difficult one. Because in order to, as I say, to actually impose yourself, you either have to do something extremely beautifully wonderful and benevolent, if you like Jeff Bezos should do at Amazon, which maybe he is. I hope he is. Or you have to do something incredibly selfish to come into the public eye. So I can't really answer that accurately, really, because I know that I'm not a horrible person, and I like to think no one would ever think I'm a horrible person. If they did, then that's quite extraordinary. How did I do that?
I can't imagine that. And I imagine that there are people who will remember how kind you were and helpful, and that you're a man of integrity. So,
well, that's it. Honesty is key. If you don't lie about anything, then you can't be caught, can you? On lying, because and ultimately that's the thing. You've got to believe in what you do, and if you did, then you will be caught out. And I don't lie to my clients, or I don't wish to lie to my clients. I try and speak things as they are. I've had many inquiries in the last few months where, here's the quotation. However, there are a few little codicils that you have to be aware of at the moment. So just, so I'm being honest here. Make that decision if you wish. However, as I've said before, at the moment, as it's always been, if you're booking a package, that's what you have to do. Flights and accommodation, book them at the same time. You have an ATOL. We're protecting your travel counsellors. If any of those components fail, then I'll be sorting out an alternative for you. If it doesn't happen, then the CAA ATOL will protect you, keep your money safe. And that's just so important. And I do the UK as well, so you don't need that side of things with the UK. You still need to make sure you're going to the right place, but I do the UK as well. So, yeah.
So, Steve, clearly you're absolutely passionate about what you do. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so very much.
No, thank you very much for your time, and stay safe, everyone, and enjoy your day.